can.
And I
Thank
give
you.
our cops a mission. I give you a mission. You get knee-deep in school board elections. You endorse candidates. You run candidates. The schools do what the school board tells them to. And you elect those school boards. And folks, have them keep those stinking doors locked. Have them put that laminate film money glass on the door beside the door. And teach those kids what to do. And teach those educators. And think about the fact that those teachers are going to die for those kids. Let's give them something in their hand besides their keys, yes? And so while you're wagging a finger in their face and making the schools do what needs to be done, let's look at the fingers pointed back at us. I tell you and I tell all my cops, you carry 24/7. Now, folks, are the things worse than death? I tell you what's worse than death. To stand there and watch your loved ones die and not have your gun on your body. Tell me you wouldn't live the rest of your life in hell. When people ask you why you carry that gun, you tell them, because there are things in this world worse than death, yes? And you cops out there, I tell you, it especially appeals to you, it occurs to you, but I want to give you an name on this now. Let's go back to the fire guy. He really is our A student. And the fire alarm is an amazing piece of technology. The fire guy knows that under stress, color vision goes out, except red. We're designed to see red under stress. Blood, survival data. What color is the fire alarm going out the door? Blood red. There's science behind that. The fire guy knows under stress, fine motor control goes out. What do I have to do to let them know there's a fire? Grab and pull. Those are gross motor skills. Here's the magic in the system. There is a direct link from the fire alarm to the fire guy. You ever thought what it costs our civilization to have the link from there? He knows what pull station will pull, he knows instantly, and he'd be out the door in seconds. But folks, violence is that what I'm going to do? Bang another kid down. I do. The answer to fire is always get out. Having the fire alarm on the way out the door is a good idea. The answer to violence is not always get out. Whatever their answer is, it needs to be in our body. The cell phone's a good place to begin. Bang another kid died. Near vision's gone, color vision's gone, fine motor control shot. I challenge you to knock the phone under stress. Bang another, you knock the phone, good for you. Now dial 911. I fumble the dial under normal conditions. I give you case after case where people could not dial 911. Bang another kid died, you dial 911. Here's the tricky part. While gunshots and screams are washing out the sounds, you have to explain who you are and where you are and what's happening. In many cases, it's physically impossible. Even when you do communicate the necessary info, then they got to turn around and start dispatching people. All that happens in just a few seconds with the fire alarm. Why can't we have some for violence? Like the fire guy does for a fire. Well, we do, and I'm a huge fan. All you cops out there, on duty, off duty, reserve, retired, if you're authorized to carry on duty, download the free app, Hero 911. Millions of apps in the App Store, millions of apps in the App Store. One is limited just to law enforcement. One of the very few apps authorized to be put on a federal issued phone. Hero 911. This is the receiver. The teacher will have the transmitter. Now, folks, I paid to put in my grandkids' school in 2 different states. I paid to put it in my house of worship. If I have a business, I put it there. Anywhere we have fire alarms, we need this far more. They're putting it in businesses, in resorts, and other places, but let's say it's in the school. The teacher gets an app, a big red button. Taps it, swipes it, taps it again. These are gross motor skills. Look what it does. It speed dials 911. It goes to your Wi-Fi and your cell system. It displays the map location from that point on of where the incident is. It lets somebody know who has an incident, where they're at. Everybody at 5-mile radius knows because these killers often go mobile. And instantly, from the teacher's phone to the cop's phone, with the information on where it is, and the cop is headed that way in seconds. By tapping on those off-duty cops, we quadruple our coverage. Those guys are going to be there pretty soon. But it's one that gets you in the first 30 seconds that matter. The entire state of Indiana has put this in place. Sheriffs across Indiana were just putting it in place, and they were putting in their daycares and their sheriffs in their counties. And now it's been statewide in all the schools. It's in like 30 states, hundreds and hundreds of school districts, entire states put it in, and it costs virtually nothing. There's just an initial fee to set it up, and it's chump change in the world of school safety and in the world of school budgets. Well, folks, in all these years, there have been 11 false alarms. Every one, somebody that didn't take the 6-minute tutorial. But one in Indiana, teacher set it off, Catholic school. Teacher set it off, first cop was to her in 30 seconds flat. 2 off-duty cops right behind him within a minute. In another couple of minutes, they were everywhere. And folks, 5 minutes later, all the king's horses and all the king's men were never with those kids back together. It's the one that gets there in the first 30 seconds going to save our kid's life and save our way of life. And so, folks, all you cops out there, remember my Special Forces sergeant says, watch my 6, cover my back. But you can't do your job if you're not carrying that gun. If that terrible massacre is happening, if that daycare massacre is happening, and you get the word and you stand there without the tools to prevent it, tell me you wouldn't spend the rest of your life in hell. It doesn't do any good to notify every cop that we're not carrying our guns. And so carry 24/7, folks, and let's talk about other things that our cops need, and this is something that all of us can tap into and have the proper equipment. And that begins with a rifle. Now, I'm a cop. I'm authorized to carry from sea to shining sea a pistol. You start carrying a rifle and you move across anywhere, you start violating all kinds of laws. But folks, I've got an AR pistol, and I love it. It's a 5.56 rifle that's been cut down. I tuck that buffer stock, that padded buffer stock in there, and I can hammer things. Like whenever I go any distance at all, I've always got that behind the seat. I can reach back and grab that thing, shoot through the windshield, rock and roll, whatever you need to do. You're authorized to carry a pistol in many states, but once you move up to rifle, all kinds of hunting laws and other complications kick in. But our cops need rifles, folks. The bad guy's going to have body armor. Dead on it. And the body armor neutralizes your pistol unless you're making headshots or pellet shots. And the bad guy has a rifle, he's punching holes through the cop's body armor like it ain't even there. And we need rifles, folks. And folks, one of the other things that we're telling everybody is a gold bag or a bailout bag. After a rifle and a radio, the next most important thing they're carrying is ammo resupply. One person behind cover bringing effective fire can keep a whole platoon of bad guys grounded for 5 minutes. One person behind cover bringing effective fire, a whole platoon of bad guys grounded for 5 minutes. Everybody military know what I'm talking about. And 5 minutes later, 2 of your friends will show up. And another 5 minutes later, your friends show up and will turn the tide of battle. But the average person is going to go in the door with 3 magazines. Or concealed carry may have less. Now, if you're firing as fast as you can accurately fire in a target-rich environment, how long are 3 magazines going to last you? Most of us burn 3 magazines at a time with accurate fire. Now what do? You're out of ammo. Well, that would never happen. Columbine High School, Littleton, Colorado. In Columbine, the cop never got the building. The killers tried to ambush from the 2nd floor window. I was the speaker at Columbine. They walked me around. You can't stand where the killers stand. They redesigned the school. But from a 2nd floor window, the killers ambushed his responding cop. Behind the vehicle, he empties 3 magazines back at the killers. Now, up to this point, all the killers have done is wound 1 teacher who will die 2 hours later from lack of medical care. But the cop fired 3 magazines of ammo. He's out of ammo. What choice did he have? To get in the vehicle and leave. And then they went to the library and murdered 12 kids. And that cop would give anything on earth to have had a Walmart bag with a box of ammo in the trunk of his car. After a rifle and a radio, after a gun, the most important thing we carry is an ammo resupply. Usually it's something you sling over the driver's side headrest. Extra pistol mags loaded, rifle mags loaded. You sling it over your shoulder and go in. But folks, you don't need it. You always put it back. At the moment of truth, you can be the ammo fairy. Here's how it works. If somebody gives you ammo, life and death They're the animal ferry. They get free beer for the rest of their life. Well, folks, another thing that our cops are doing nationwide that just kind of extends the envelope is smoke. Folks, we're taking those smoke grenades out of those squat lockers and put them in the trunk of people's cars. All those military guys know what the smoke grenade right now. How many times we played this stupid game where the bad guy shoots people trying to rescue them before we pop smoke? How many times we keep playing this stupid game? There's so many things we can do with smoke at the moment of truth. But another resource that they're tapping into is our crew-served, belt-fed, continuous feed system, the fire hose. Now, folks, nationwide we're integrating firefighting in. A SWAT team leader in New Jersey told me, he said, Dave, it happened. We did it just like you said. A guy had trapped his wife and kids in a little trailer home, soaked him with kerosene, and cops showed up and he's about to torch it off. We got a standoff. The guy's got a wife and kids trapped in a trailer home, soaked with kerosene. He's standing at the front door. He said, I knew exactly what to do, just like you said. Fire truck was staged back there. We ran them up, ran the hose up. They had the hose. We had a cop with the shield, a little crack between the shields, stick the hose out. The only problem was the fire guys didn't want to crank the hose up to full power. I ran back and cranked up full power. We blew this guy out the backside of his trailer. And nobody died that day. Folks, fire as a weapon of mass murder is very common. Russia has virtually no privately owned firearms and almost double the homicide rate. They just find other ways to kill people. And fire is one of them. And when a world without guns, a big guy just beats people to death, and what are you going to do about it? You understand? So folks, the final finger pointed back at us. I tell all of us, we're going to take action. The final finger pointed back at us. Have our heart and mind ready. And if you truly have your heart and mind ready, that equals training. Training, training, training. You be training fools. If the range is open and ever available, you be there. Now, folks, I'll give you a police example, but it expands to all of us. The Pulse versus the Pulse nightclub. 49 people murdered in the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. The nightclub had an off-duty cop hired to provide security in the parking lot. The official Orlando report quotes their cop as saying, I heard a rifle, I had a pistol, I chose not to go in. That man's been sued. If I was on the jury, I'd be sending a message. A cop, especially being paid on duty, does not have the right to hunker down and hide while 49 people were slaughtered. But then what happened was two people escaped down an exit. Now the killer propped over the exit with a foot and murdered those two people in front of the cops. And then brings the cop under fire. Everything up to this point is straight out of the official Orlando report. But a cop was there told me their cop was behind a vehicle riddled with rifle bullets, fired most of a magazine from about 30 feet away, and didn't hit once. No wonder he didn't know it. No skill, no ability, probably some goofy, rinky-dink little off-duty gun. I tell people, carry your shoot gun and shoot your carry gun. But folks, the other example I want to give you is the Draw the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival. I said Dallas, Texas, in May of 2015. Now, in the eyes of Islam, to draw the prophet is a terrible crime. And they're afraid to draw bad guys that are dead. Two art critics from Arizona showed up. Here's the layout that day. Now, this is dead art critic's car. There's Officer Greg Stevens' car. And he's in the southern entrance to the Draw the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival. He's standing about there. The motorcycle wasn't there at the moment. This is a post-crime scene photograph. A black car screeches to a halt. Both doors pop open. And Officer Greg Stevens said the hair stand up the back of my head. He said, when you feel that hair stand up your arm, you pay attention. He's already in position one. He's got a good firm grip on his gun. You know, we do our drills, hand off the gun, our gun's already out. Let's do a few drills where we begin with a good firm grip. And the vast majority of law enforcement circumstances, they begin with a good grip. Don't eat it, let go of it. It's almost instinctive. So boom, he's in position one, the door's not open. They roll out both doors simultaneously. The driver rolls out, shoots unarmed security guard. Now folks, we cannot, these are the bravest of the brave, I'm not mocking them, but we cannot call unarmed people security. There's legal liability associated with that issue. Call them safety, call them run like that for the man with the gun gun shows up. But don't put him in uniform, says kill me first, and knock him the tools to do the job. So that unarmed security guard was hit once, and he's running at Mach 2 on his way to the Mexican border. Right? But he did distract the driver for a split second. Now the passenger rolls out of the vehicle, and Officer Greg Stevens, around that blue dot, 40 feet away, he said, I saw the barrel of an AK-47 come at me, I drew and fired. He said, I cannot tell you who fired first. I'll tell you who fired best. From 40 feet away, you puts a volley of four, and this guy going for pelvic shots. Assume for the minute of body armor, just going for low center mass shots, and puts the bad guy down. Now, the driver, 30 rounds, over 30 rounds of rifle fire we fired at Greg Stevens that won't hit once. He's hitting with virtually every shot fired. Now, the driver realizes we got a problem here, and he starts shooting at Greg and advancing here. Right about there is when Greg, it brought him. Now the range is closed to around 30 feet. Greg's going for headshots, a volley of four, and puts that guy down. Now, this is a very unique circumstance. They're clearly terrorist attacks, and that car could be a bomb that will go off any minute and kill hundreds of people. They had load-bearing vests, they had backpacks that could have been bombs. As long as they are still twitching, they are a legitimate threat. Greg re-engages the passenger who's grabbing at his foot. He thought the guy was going for a detonator, and so puts volley four on this guy. Now he said he's got a Glock, 45 caliber. He's got 14 rounds. He's fired 4, 4, and 4. He's got 2 rounds left. The driver's still twitching. He said, city's paying for the ammo. Dropped the magazine, did his pre-reload, checked 360. Who would not want to shake that man's hand? Well, folks, Officer Greg Stevens was not a SWAT dog. He was not a competitive shooter, although those are good. Officer Greg Stevens' department had an open range once a month for 37 years. And for 37 years, once a month, Officer Greg Stevens is on the range. And he trained hard, and he trained realistically. Hey, you're going to be in there on your own time. Not even paying you. We're going to be on your own time for. This is why. For 37 years, monthly, Officer Greg Stevens made a deposit in his savings account. In May of 2015, he made a major withdrawal. Folks, it's not enough to have a gun. You got to be good. Now, don't be a gun snob. You got to fire 18,000 rounds and do all this to be able to carry a gun. No, don't go there. But once you made the decision to carry it, dang it, let's get the training. My great-grandmother in New Orleans in 1932 shot a guy off the second floor back balcony. Granny had probably never fired more than 50 rounds of that, if any. But she ultimate point-and-click interface. She pointed the revolver at the back at that balcony door and pulled the trigger, but the bad guy went away. The next morning, they followed a blood trail going out to the alley. Yes. Granny with the revolver in the bedside stand is a force to be reckoned with. But once you've made the decision to carry a gun, the next step is being good. So, folks, I trained at the NRA this last weekend. I spoke all 3 days at the NRA Carry Guard or Personal Protection Conference. And a man named Stephen Williford was there. I had the honor of working with him on several occasions. Stephen was the one that stopped the massacre, that church massacre in Sutherland Springs, Texas. On a Sunday morning, Stephen he hears gunshots coming from the church. It's just like that's about 50 meters away from where he lives. He had a rifle stolen previously, so he kept his rifle in a gun safe. And he had to run to the gun safe, open the safe, and load a magazine. Every magazine, every second, people are dying. When's enough? How many rounds you need? He loaded a magazine partially full, raced outside in his stocking feet on a gravel road, and fired a volley of fire. Now, what you may not have heard about him, he did lots and lots of training. He did 3 gun matches. He's kind of a roly-poly guy with a little beard. I'm telling you, it's not what's out here that matters, it's what's in here that matters. And he had trained for body armor defeat. He trained to go here, here, and here to defeat body armor. He's got a side shot at the guy, puts a volley in him. Now the bad guy is injured, and he hobbles to the car and races off. These people are all trained on video games. The moment they get hurt, owie, mommy, I don't like this game anymore. The moment, even when there's a threat that they might be hurt, they say, I don't want to play this game anymore, and they kill themselves. So he gets in a car, runs off, and you know the rest of the story. They chased him down, and ultimately he killed himself. But Stephen Williford was there, and he had just been in the governor's office, Texas governor's office, and there had been a major meeting and transfer of information. Stephen was invited as a true Texas state hero. And in that Walmart, where the El Paso massacre happened, there were 8 concealed carry permit holders. And every one of them said, I was grabbing my family and getting out of there. Now, you got to respect that. But they're not sheep. Stephen Williford said, my family knows I'm going that way and you go that way. You call the cops, you describe me, tell them what I look like and tell them I'm the good guy. He said, if I didn't have a gun on me, I would have raced to the sporting goods, busted the glass, grabbed a Mossberg and a box of ammo and been at it. And folks, those of us who are good, there's a part of us that yearns for an opportunity to use our skills. The idea of running away while this terrible massacre happened is just an abomination. But it's a matter of training and confidence. Are you going to be running away with your family and God bless you? Or are you going to be going toward the bad guy? And I tell you, it comes back to training. So folks, I tell people there's so many things we could be doing that reinforce survival skills. Hunting. I'm convinced from a lifetime of study. The best way to prepare for combat is hunting. Don't hunt. Go with your friends to do it. See what it's about. Cowboy hunting, shooting, airsoft, and paintball. Can't buy ammo, can't afford ammo, don't whine to me. My grandkids and I sit in the dock and throw pine cones in the water and shoot it with a pellet pistol for hours. Folks, martial arts is an enormously valuable set of skills you can do with your loved ones. And I am a huge fan. And by the way, come up with dates on some of these if you want, I'll sign them for you. You know, these have gone up for charity auctions. Charity auctions, 3 different times. Every time they sold for over $200. Not even dead yet, my art's worth money. For you, it's free. Right? For you, it's free. So folks, I'm a huge fan of the martial art of the firearm. I grew up in the martial arts. I love the martial arts. I turned 18. My martial art became the rifle and the pistol. But I've heard for years about the martial art of the firearm. I won't go into detail. Look online. They are dynamite. Dynamite. www.hojutsu.com. I thought it was good. I'm a gun site grad, a front site grad, do a little competitive shooting. I showed up for the first 3-day weekend. They go across the country. I barely beat brown belt. The skin of my teeth. I trained for 2 years to make black belt. I knew the shots I was missing. I knew the times I was missing. And I trained for 2 years to make my black belt. 20 million Americans in the martial arts. Only a couple thousand compete. Americans aren't into that kind of competition, but striving for the next belt, we can wrap our mind around that. The structure, the dojo, and the belt, and the discipline, we can wrap our mind around that. So folks, you know, I enlisted in the Army in 1974. My dad was a cop, and every police department had a shooting range. Had a shooting team. Some of you old timers remember all those shooting folks. They're gone. You see, right up to the 1970s, the World War II veterans were running the show. They were our sergeants and our captains, our chiefs and our sheriffs. And they all had a pistol team. And they honored the roly-poly little guy in the pistol team more than anyone else. Now, Hojutsu is all paper targets, but it's moving, it's doing all kinds of crazy things. One shot off the target, you're out. And there's time hacks and stress. Hojutsu has had closing on 30 people in real-world gunfights with over a 98% hit ratio. But folks, both World War II vets knew something that we forgot. We'll grow old, we'll grow fat, but we can still be one hell of a shot. You got every excuse for growing old. You got a pretty dang good excuse for growing fat, but there is no excuse for carrying a gun, not being a hell of a shot. We tell our cops, at least let your hobby have cardio demands, running, swimming, basketball, softball, tennis. So there's a motto that runs through my sci-fi fantasy series. I take this stuff and put a little sci-fi fantasy series. It's slightly crude, I apologize. It simply says this, piss on golf. Real Americans go to the range. There's no survival skill found on the golf course. There's no cardio demand found on the golf course. For us, a golf course is a willful and deliberate misuse of a perfectly good rifle range. And we are not impressed. Hit a little golf ball 200 yards. Hit a golf ball from 200 yards. We're impressed. It's always fun to tease our golfers. Always good sports. Sometimes they're our best shots. You know, all of us can look at how we spend our time and how we spend our money. For 37 years, Officer Greg Stevens on the range once a month on his own time. How much golfing could he have done in 37 years one Saturday morning? How much time could he spend with his family? Sometimes your greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. That takes your own money and your own time and your own resources to prepare for that. And you do this for me. When you're throwing your range bag in the car on Saturday morning, your neighbor's throwing the golf clubs in the car, wave at them and tell them something for me. Let the sheep go graze on the golf course. We're at war. The kids overseas are fucking dying. And we ain't got money to piss away. And we ain't got time to piss away. A decadent trivial events. Well, folks, I want to wrap up the morning by coming full cycle back to assassination generation. I said I don't have you left, but I do have one left. And folks, just come to the full cycle that the state of California overwhelmingly voted to regulate children's access to these video games. And the video game industry fought them all over the Supreme Court. They said, we have the right to sell any game to any child at any age. You cannot stop us, you cannot regulate us in any way, shape, or form. They spend vast amounts of money. Folks, one video game, Grand Theft Auto 5, the year it came out, made more money than the entire global music industry. One video game made more money than every rock concert on the planet, every musician, every CD, every download on the planet. They spend vast amounts of money fighting all through the Supreme Court to sell any game, any child, any age. On one side were definitive statements for the AMA, the APA, the Surgeon General. On the other side, they found 82 journalism professors, 82 media studies professors who committed academic malfeasance and said there is no scientific evidence. Every medical, psychiatric, psychological group on one side, freaking journalism professors on the other side, and they conned 7 old men who'd never played Pong in their life to overturn the California law. How many of y'all knew that? That's where we are today. That's a critical dynamic, and it's been completely flushed out of it, and it's in the book. I was at the White House in the President's Roundtable. The video game industry just lied through it. I said, sir, these people are lying. It's all in my book. I said, you guys don't really believe your own propaganda, do you? I said, read the book, read the dissenting opinions. Understand what happened that day, and put all the pieces together. Just recognize the fact that, folks, the critical component for you to understand is we got the brain scan data coming in from across the planet. That's all in the book. Here's your kid's brain, and here's a video game player. This is a dozen low-medium violence exposure kids, a composite, and that's a dozen high-medium violence exposure kids faced with a simple, predictive left brain exercise. Complete shutdown of left brain processing. You tell that kid, don't you understand? If you don't do your homework, you're going to get an F. No. Don't you understand? You take a gun to school and your life is irredeemably over. No, they don't get it. Folks, the fight or flight hormones are flooding through their brain. Violent visual imagery inflicted upon children is a powerful physiological impact. Now here's your kid's brain at rest. Here's your video game player's brain at rest. There are aliens among us that look this here on the outside and the inside, they are wired different. And the brain scan studies coming in from around the planet. I want you to understand, we can detox that kid. We can turn this kid back into that kid in about 2 or 3 days. You ever taken a kid camping, hiking, hunting for a week? Ever get away from TV, movie, and video games a week? The first 2 days are pure hell. They are going through withdrawal symptoms. They're detoxing. On the 3rd day, it's like somebody threw a switch. Church camps nationwide tell me, ain't nothing spiritual in this camp for the first 2 days. On the 3rd day, it's like somebody threw a switch. So why the whole school detox their kid? Stanford Med School and controlled double-blind medical research demonstrated K through 12 TV pornography. K through 12 and tested, controlled double-blind observation, detoxing kids for 10 days. Detox those kids for 10 days. And violence, And bullying, down, right at 48%. I was being violent since Cain killed Abel. Well, I was being violent, yeah. You feed this stuff to your kids, you get more violence, you turn it off. Detox for 10 days, cut violence in half right now. The National Institutes of Health have called this the single most effective juvenile obesity reduction program ever demonstrated. Obesity down. Now the long term, the detox didn't do it, it's the long-term TV budget, the TV diet they put themselves on. They reduce the obesity. And folks, again, in a K-12 school, in state testing, math scores up 15%. Verbal scores on state testing up 18%. Of course the test was up. The fight or flight hormones are flushed out of the brain. They're not sleep deprived. They're not being bullied. They're not being attacked. So this curriculum, folks, is taken off like grass fire around the planet, across France, across America. 2 school districts in West Virginia right now, 3 major school districts in Florida looking at it. Check out the website, www.takethechallenge, the TV turnout challenge. Take the challenge now.net. www.takethechallengenow.net. First thing you do, look at the testimonials. The number 2 testimonials in AP Wire article. The K-12 school turned it off, cut violence in half, cut bullying in half, and raised test scores double digits. So folks, we had an evil industry that fought tooth and nail, decade after decade, lied and deceived to sell a toxic substance to children, the tobacco industry. Decade after decade, the tobacco industry fought tooth and nail over one thing, to sell tobacco to children. My dad started smoking when he was 5 years old, 1940. Hey kids, cigarettes are good for you. Candy will rot your teeth. It's his money, he wants to buy cigarettes, that's his business. And that was the norm. No. 55 years later, those cigarettes finally killed my dad. But folks, you know how we defeated it? I tell you the day we defeated the tobacco industry. It was 1964. My 2nd grade teacher told us cigarettes kill people. I went home and hid my dad's cigarettes. You ever do anything like that? Yeah, my dad convinced me it wasn't a very good idea. But when our teachers told us tobacco kills people, we became the legislators and the voters and the judges and the juries. We didn't ban tobacco. We got a ban media models. All we're saying is don't sell this garbage to children. Violent visual imagery inflicted upon children puts them in a fight or flight mode. Nobody should be talking about book banning. Nobody should be talking free speech. Nobody should be telling adults what they can or cannot do. And I'm not a big guy in laws, but I support the California law. If you'd told my mom to buckle those 5 kids up, she said it wasn't possible. Came the law, it got done. Are we all okay with seatbelt laws for children? And again, this kind of thing to protect our kids with good flight. But just recognize where we're at today, folks, and the TV turn-off curriculum. The Take the Challenge is a tool we can use to educate a generation and lead the way home. But in the meanwhile, got some dark and desperate times in front of us. And I tell you with all my heart and all my soul, it's not going away, it's going to keep getting worse. The game's ever more addictive, ever more powerful, ever more immersive. And then we got cell phones and sleep deprivation. We're going to talk more about sleep deprivation and what's our kids that understand this, folks. When we talk about sleep, and this is a critical piece of the equation, folks, after 18 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.08 legally covered. After 24 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.10 above legally covered. After 3 days without sleep, you are psychotic. Any graduate of Ranger School will tell about hallucinations on the 3rd day without sleep. And folks, we have kids who play the games all night long. They go to school. They play the games all night long. Now they go back to school, they're on their 3rd day without sleep. And I will tell you personally, you will see things and hear things that are not there on the 3rd day without sleep. The sleep deprivation is a critical component in our suicides. Folks, taking your life is not a natural act. We have to have profoundly impaired judgment to take your life. Alcohol and suicide have always been closely related. Alcohol creates impaired judgment. You make a bad decision, you have a chance to rethink it. But the most pervasive form of impaired judgment is sleep deprivation. And it is a critical factor in suicides. In the active duty military, we study every suicide intensely. In the active duty military, our suicides have nothing to do with combat. A non-combat vet is as likely to take life as a combat vet. A sleep-deprived person can be up to 5 times more likely to take their life. Sleep deprivation is a critical component worldwide in an explosion of suicides and teen suicides. Well, folks, the cop told me, he said, I had a good girl. He said she was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You're not going to take myself out every night. You can trust me. He said, so I trusted her. Let her keep her cell phone. He said, a little while later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And I never knew the hell she was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. And you can't ignore this stuff. We're not wired that way. She's up all night long. She's up all night long trying to find somebody to defend her, trying to find some way to stand up to these people. I said, my little girl was sleep deprived, bullied, tormented to death in front of my eyes, and I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message in the middle of the night. How do I expect a little girl to? Folks, they call them tweenagers. 10, 11, 12-year-olds. Tweenage girls' suicide rate has tripled per capita in just the last decade. Worldwide, teen suicides have exploded. And sleep deprivation, the cell phone, oh, they don't ever want to stop cell phones to children. That would destroy their market. The cell phones, the text messaging, the video games, and these other things are just eating the children alive. The video games are designed to be addictive, impossible to turn off. Right now, 200 million people are playing a game called Fortnite. We do this, and 0.05% say, good time to quit the game. Never do that again. We do this, absolutely nobody quits. They do more of that. It's a constant interactive feedback loop with millions of data points being devoured to know just the right flicker rate, just the right color, just the right pattern, just the right plot to make those games impossible to turn off. Old-timers think like Tetris. On steroids, we crack from it. You understand? And each generation gets more addictive. Folks, 15% of all divorces in America, video games are the cause. Google video games divorce. Wife says, what's more important, the game or your family? It's an easy one. Let's get a divorce. It's tragic. It's destructive. Adults are playing the game until they die. Adults mess themselves and wet themselves while they're sitting because they can't stop the game. Children are being destroyed by these games. And they fought all the way to the Supreme Court to sell any game, any kid at any age. And they're doing the same thing worldwide. And so, folks, there's light at the end of the tunnel. But our children, our grandchildren, are dying at rates we've never seen before. Traffic deaths are the #1 killer of teenagers in America, although different assessments change some of the data. But folks, sleep deprivation is the greatest predictor in traffic death. There's a reason why truck drivers and airline pilots are required by law to get enough sleep. You got a kid that's going to be behind the wheel of a vehicle, he must get a good night's sleep the night before. And they're not getting that. The 3 major killings for kids: suicide, traffic deaths, and drug overdoses. Just taking drugs is impaired judgment right there. But folks, sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. The muscles and tendons never fully relax. Sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. The opiate epidemic worldwide. Prescription opiates have always been there. What is the new factor worldwide? A worldwide epidemic of sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. Doc, I heard all the time, give me a pill to fix it. You don't need a pill, you need more sleep. And we're being eaten alive by this stuff. And they will never say, don't give your kid a cell phone. They will never say, your kid shouldn't play this video game. They got a rating system, but they absolutely refuse to enforce it all the way to the Supreme Court. And so we're in the middle of a toxic and corrosive time. And when the world comes unglued, they desperately have to point the finger somewhere else. Where do they point the finger? At the guns. It's all about the guns. How's that working in Mexico? Yeah. Now, folks, it's just the opposite. The only tool that we have to sustain our civilization and our freedoms and our way of life is those guns that were carved into the DNA of our nation with the Second Amendment. and you believe in who you are, and you believe in what you do. When you get back from lunch, we're going to study the epoxy ground called combat. The good stuff. You got to say the good stuff after lunch. And all the good stuff is coming. But I want you all, a lot of people had a hand in making this happen. A lot of neat things are happening, and we're going to get a chance to hear a little bit from Jim Irvin. But folks, I want you to, Cheryl Todd, like I said, she's the Wonder Woman of the airwaves with her golden lariat of truth and justice. She's one of the key factors that made this possible. Give her a big hand.
He praises me far too much. It's a team of people that put these things together, and it's folks like you who take time out of your lives to come and participate. That is really, what'd you call me, the superwoman of the airways? Well, you guys are the super people of Arizona. So thank you for that. Before we break, I just wanted to give you a quick lay of the land. Our food is laid out buffet style in the hall. Please go out, fill a plate, come back in here and eat. A staff member for the hotel will come by and pick up your plates when you're done. There's water at the back of the room here. There's tea and coffee out in the breezeway. And I did want to recognize some dignitaries, some elected officials who have come into the room since we've begun. We have in the room Arizona State Representative Kevin Payne. Yes? Someone? Thank you. LD21, yes? All right, we have right next to him actually is Arizona State Rep for District 22, Frank Carroll. Up here to my right, we have Arizona State Rep for LD23, Jay Lawrence. And we have Dawn Dinsmore, who has joined us. She is from Peoria City Council and the Dysart School Board. Thank you. Well, I'm going to just let you guys figure out your own way out to the breezeway and line up and have some great food. And we will reconvene here at...
Quarter till the hour, 45 minutes, quarter till. Come back, tummy's full, gear levels down, cabin levels up. Ready to rock and roll. 45 minutes.